Good. That's always helpful. Yeah, we've had a little bit of trauma today. Sometimes technology causes me no end of headaches. And today was one of those days. But all is good now. Just as well, isn't it? The lovely StreamYard, which we use for streaming, decided that it would log me out. And then I couldn't get logged in because the code went to a lovely friend in Mexico who thankfully sent it to me, and we sorted the mess out. But hey ho. So I'm assuming that everyone can see and hear me. Good afternoon, Sheila. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a plan for the evening. It's always good to have a plan, isn't it? There we are. Let's just find it, brush, because it doesn't really matter what. There we are, there we are, there we are. And, right, all ready. Good evening, Liliana. Hello, Josephine. Welcome. Welcome to the world of chaos that surrounds me. So, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight, because Pentacolor distribute for Stamperia, and they have released a whole collection of dies. Oh, they're on the floor. And different things to go with their papers. And I just thought we would do something a little bit different, to use the new beautiful Timeless collection and some fabric products from Pentacolor, and do a little bit of playing around, because why wouldn't I? She says. Oh, they're on the floor. That's okay. I'll put it all together. Good evening, Sarah. Hello, Sue. So this is just plain cotton fabric, and it started out completely white, and I've clearly made in practicing quite a lot of it. But the joy of having dies and things is that you can do all sorts, and it means that you can make flowers to suit any occasion and the colours of any project. So this is a technique that, you see, I don't know what this fabric is, but I think it's not pure cotton, because it's, oh, she says, brute force and ignorance. So we just have a little bit of cotton fabric, and I've chosen colours of paints that I believe will work with the collection. So these are the Pentacolor fabric paints and the fabric and leather paints. So I have picked a petrol blue, country blue, and I have beige, and I also picked up hazelnut, and then didn't use the hazelnut, but I'm being transparent as to what I actually did do. So we're going to make some flowers, and then we're going to make a card using lots of the dies, because why not? Now, if I just paint the fabric directly with the fabric paints, they are so pigment dense. I will just have a really dense color, and the colors in the paper collection are really a little bit more subtle than that. So I'm just going to give this a good soak. I don't particularly want it dripping wet, but there we are. We'll end up with it dripping wet. Hello, Hello, Elizabeth. I think I've managed to say hello to everyone else. If not, I do apologise. Please do not think that I'm rude. We've had a very stressful day. As I say, I couldn't log into StreamYard. It decided to be a pain in the proverbial. And then and I'm not meant to be getting stressed at the moment because I'm waiting to start treatment for a health condition. And yeah, anyway, the health condition will get resolved, but I'm not meant to be getting stressed. And of course it was stressful because I like things to go to plan and smoothly. So there we are. Let's just get some of these paint out. We're definitely focusing more on the paper craft side of things, but then of course Pentart do a beautiful range of glues, so that makes life easy. I do have everything around me. That's even better, isn't it? Hi, Connie. Welcome, darling. Hi, Janice. Welcome. Lots of people coming in watching today. So I'm just going to colour some fabric, and then of course it needs to be left to dry. But we'll go through that as we go, and how to set it and things, because it's good to use products that sit on the side and don't get used very often. You could of course use the dyes long term with, I see, I told you that it's really fabric dense, isn't it? So let's just pick up some of this, and I'm not mithered about it all mixing in, because I'm just going to get some different colours and some different shades, and that's so literally no skill required. Yeah, I literally just pop these on to the fabric and then moved it about, really. I don't believe, as you know, I don't do complicated, and that beige is just going to add slightly greeny tone and some paleness to some of it. So it couldn't be quicker, really, could it? Because that's all pretty much the mixed media we're going to do today. She says, yeah, that's pretty much all of the mixed media we're doing. I know. Here we are. So we've got we might have a little bit more of that. And if it's not moving very well, then we can just add in some spray, water. Don't cover everything on your work surface. And you can carry on adding then and moving stuff around. And because the fabric is wet, it will wick, and you will be able to. I will need some of that back out, but that's okay. And so the colours will merge and it will change. And now, of course, look at that underneath there. Can I let that go to waste? Absolutely not. So what am I going to do? She says she picked and put her baby wipes down. There we are. So I'm just going to mop this up with the baby wipe, because baby wipes can be cut up. And if it's dry, but it does need to dry. Yeah, there we are. So let me just hang that up conveniently out of harm's way. Let's pick up all of that mess. There we are. Let's give that a little bit of a blast dry while we talk about heat setting. Okay, so when obviously not so important. Obviously not so important for a card making project, but definitely if it's going to be a functional piece that you might need to wash, then you need to know how to set your fabric. So Connie, this is the fabric. I've used two different fabric paints from Pentart. This one, which is a straight fabric paint, best, yeah. And you need to use it on a surface that you can heat set to make it permanent, or leave it to dry over 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's pretty permanent. And it comes in, I think, about 30 different colors. There's a huge range. It's beautiful. And I've also used a paint product called fabric and leather paint, and this with the Pentart solvent cleaner and varnish, leather varnish, means that you can paint directly onto leather and faux leather, and that will be permanent. This one doesn't need to be heat set, but you just need to leave it to cure for quite a long time. But by mixing the colours, you get a beautiful ring. So I'm going to do a combination, because obviously I haven't got hours to dry and whatever, and the colours will mix and merge. But by heating it and drying it this way, it will dry and set. And as I say, for the purposes of a card with custom coloured flowers, then actually it really doesn't matter, because it doesn't need to be washable, does it? Because the card is definitely not going to go in the wash. So that's the beauty. But the paint just mixes more nicely, I think, on fabric if you're using proper fabric paint. So yeah, so you just need to heat set it. You can iron it to heat set as well, and the recommendation is you iron for a full 2 minutes, and that actually is a long time when you're sitting there. There are lots of my Facebook lives from last year that happened about this time last year for Pentart that I don't think have been deleted yet, but if they have, they have already been uploaded to Pentart's YouTube channel that talks through how to use the machine washable fabric paint, and also the fabric and leather paint. So that's helpful. So there we are. It's lovely to see people thanking each other for being nice. So let's just do that. And we're going to make some really simple flowers using, and I know that the Polish girls, and therefore probably quite a lot of the European girls, have fancy tools for shaping their fabric flowers, but I think most people in the UK haven't got them. So we're not doing complicated, we're doing simple, straightforward, just to give something that looks pretty and is effective, rather than with tools that we can all relate to, because I think that's really, really important. Now, Stamperia have released a foam for flower shaping, and also collections of ball tools, and those are available from Pentart if that's where you get your shopping from. It should take forever to dry this, but you don't have to, if you've got a ball tool from someone else, don't go buying more. It's silly to do so. So I'm just going to pop that out of the way. It's still soaking wet, but that will die cut when it's properly dry. If I try and do it now, there's no chance that it's going to. So like all well-behaved children, we have some already cut, because why wouldn't I? Hi, Jill. So let us, excuse me, just while I go circling on the floor. Because we have lots of different products out tonight, just because I needed them. All right, and I had to find a die cutting machine that was small enough for my desk for the lives. That's a trauma in its own right. Okay, so let me just clear some of this mess. Don't need pink plate. There we are. Don't need that. So there are lots of dies in the collection, and I have not got all of them. Okay, so but let me go through some of them because I think it's worth going through. So this is set, one of the sets. It comes with some beautiful leaves. Florals have to have leaves, don't they? And I don't think you can ever have enough leaf sets. And then we have 2 different sized photograph rolls, yeah, photo film rolls, which makes that set very, very usable. We have a set with nice rings, ideal placement for your contour pen, faux gems, or blobs of melted wax, and completely different leaves. We have a heart with some bottles and some more leaves. We have a frame set with some swirls. We have another floral set. So the first floral, yeah, we are. We haven't picked up a floral set yet. So there we are. Let's go. And there is a 2-petaled floral set, which I haven't picked up. So you don't need to buy all of these by any stretch of the imagination. Just get the ones that you want. And then there is a stamp set, and that's what we're going to come to next. These 2 stamps, I think, are going to get used massively by me. So let's just pop that onto there. And this stamp set has memories always and perfect day. Beautiful, beautiful sentiments for your mates. Anyway, let's just pop that out the way. What do I need out? Let's pick up those. We're not going to do masses of die cutting. I have got stuff already die cut, but I just thought it's nice to see some things being done. The fabric is a bit more of a struggle, I will not lie to you. Okay, so let's just pop those over there. She says, keeping her sets together so we don't have a pickle. And then let's just tuck those over there out of harm's way for the moment, because I don't really want to lose them. And I have a very, very old tabletop die cutting machine. Now, for the vast majority of these dies, you will manage to get them and cut them through a small, like I just done with that piece of card. I know I'm going to need that piece of card. Okay, we'll just have to cut out some. Aha, there it is. We'll go through one of the smaller machines, but for complete transparency, I found that the envelope die, which is lovely, does not comfortably go through the a big shop platform. So for me, it needed a wider platform. So I think these, I might struggle to get these through in one go with these, and because it's fabric, I may well almost certainly need to take my scissors to these as well. So I had, again, it's about getting used to your machine. Okay, so I know that I need to shim that because it's not deep enough. So let's just pop that into there. Let's pop this through the machine. I don't have this machine out very often. I said to the ladies the other day, I didn't have one, a small machine. But then I saw this out the corner of my eye this morning and went, so you do have a machine. But it is 15 plus years old. And I don't think Spellbinders currently make one like this. But hey ho. Right, there we are. So let's see how well that has cut. There are some machines, I think, that probably nowadays will have more pressure and cut more easily. So there we are. Yeah, so that has, you can see that it's difficult with that machine, but I've got enough cut that I can pop this in, pop my scissors in, and just break it down. As I think a more modern machine. And am I asking a lot? Yeah, I am, because those machines work by cutting, don't they? By pressure. So we're asking to split the machine. Now, if it bothers you that it's going to fray, then some spray starch will work quite nicely. So there we are. So these ones I think I would just have to put through again, because they've cut less well, but I have more cut out. But to show that actually if you're using papers, it doesn't matter, we'll just repeat the same process. There we are, with 2 of those, and show that actually they cut beautifully when you're not asking it to do the impossible. And you will get very different looks whether you're doing these with paper, watercolor card that you've self-colored, maybe with the Pantart liquid watercolors. That would work quite nicely. Okay, we'll get there eventually, ladies. We absolutely will. Good evening, B. It's a long time since I've seen you online. There we are. So I can see that these have cut really, really well. Now that pokey tool required. So there are release holes. These are the release holes, which make it easy. And there is definitely a little hole in the center for which you can put your stamens. There we are. So they cut beautifully, papers, and they will also cut vellum. And clearly I can't get that piece of vellum through there. So there we are. So let's just pop that onto there, and then we'll just show you that these will work nicely. And let's just put those safely over there. So these are just some of the leaves. There's lots of different leaf shapes in the collection, and that's really helpful, because you don't always want every leaf to be absolutely identical, do you? And I've got some different ones cut for the actual project I intend making. So there we are. And it's all ready to assemble. So that's good. There we are. Sorry if that flashed. So let's just... Okay. So they will cut fabric. It's a bit of a faff, but absolutely worth it. They cut through the Samperia papers beautifully, and this is vellum. So, and they cut through that absolutely beautifully as well. So I'm going to pop these dies somewhere safe. She says, good grief, that's the glue that keeps them safe in the packet. So that can go over there. That can go over there. That can go on the floor. Okay. So we'll do, I'm going to just make the paint. I'm just going to make up the fabric flowers today. Okay. Because I think that will be sufficient. And I'm going to use hot glue to, hot glue. Yes, hot glue for those. So let me just pop those out of the way. There we are. So this is the stamp, comes out from one of the stamp sets. I do have both stamp sets, but this little dotty stamp, there we are. If I bring it up, there's 2 different sizes. I think will end up being one of my most used ones, because, well, why wouldn't it? Just because it's a great for adding just a little bit of extra detail into your pieces. Let's not go with that one. Let's just go with the paler blue. So I'm going to, because you can stamp with your fabric paints, and don't be afraid of using paint on your stamps. You just have to clean it straight away before it dries. Oh, thank you so much. Okie dokie. So that's on a piece of cut and use, a foam pad. You can use a dauber. And I'm just going to give my stamp a covering of that and pop it down into the centre. And it just adds just a little bit of extra detail. I could ink around the edges of them quite happily. That would work. I could just drag that paint around the edges. So having dyes and paints just allows you to custom create your flowers, because a pack of pre-made flowers in its own right tends to cost, you know, can often end up costing £5 or £6. And if you like me and use 3/4 of a pack on a project, that makes for a really, really expensive card. And I don't think it's something that we can afford to do. So being able to make your own from cheap cotton fabric, paint, or from cardstock, again, will just make your life a lot easier. And you can stamp on the paper die cuts just as easy. I'm just going to heat set this paint. It's not going to take me very long, is it? Because it's not going to sit there. There are flower dies, envelope dies, photonegative dies, swirls, leaves, hearts, frames, moons. Lots of dies that have come out with the latest Stamperia Timeless collection. Okay, so how are we going to convert these into flowers? Well, we're going to do it really, really simply. If you've got a flower making hot iron tool, then you can add much more detail, ladies. I'm not going to hide from that. But I suspect, certainly for my UK members, you haven't got those. And actually, I'm going to show you, you don't need them. You can keep things simple. What you will need, though, are some stamens. Okay. And a little bit of wire. There we are. So there's a little bit of wire. And you can change the look up of your flowers by changing the numbers of stamens that you put in, the size of the stamens that you put in, and also the colours of the stamens that you put in. Thank you, Sheila. There we are. So we're just going to take, because there we are, we're just going to take 3 of those for the moment. I'll show you. And as I say, I've got some pre-made, so it's not a major headache. We're not going to make labour for hours doing this. So we're going to hook this piece of metal. It's just a piece of wire, thin wire. Have those reasonably accurate. Hook it in the middle. Squash it in. And there is a hole in the middle of these dies that you need to then pop it through and pull. And simply the act of pulling will have the floral pieces beginning to, you know, just become a simplified flower. So I'm just going to put the next size up into here. You could have it as 1 layer. You don't have to have 2 layers. You can have 3 layers. The choice and the options are entirely up to you. So we're going to pull that through. And this is the way I do it. I cup the piece I'm pulling. So let's just pull those back a little bit, because I need to be able to stick these so that they're not going to go flat. Okay. So I'm just going to get my hot glue gun. Okay. And pop a little daub of that in there. Little daub of that. And I'm going to pull that up. And as I pull it up, I'm cupping so that the leaves are coming around. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can make cards, Sarah. I just choose not to. But there we are. Yeah. So we've just got, and that will work just on its own. It's pretty just on its own. Obviously, the least amount of glue, the better. But hey ho, that I'll just add a little bit of that around there and pull that back into place and hold it while it dries. So now we've got a little pretty 2-layered flower. And as I say, none of these flowers are going to be identical. And that really, really doesn't matter, does it? Because flowers aren't identical. And because you can custom colour for yourself. Thank you, Elizabeth. It just works. And as I say, you don't have to go to the trouble. Yeah, I'll be clear. You don't have to go to the trouble of making your own fabric and colouring it. But the life is for Pentart, so I just felt I had to do something that was a bit more than just die cutting and gluing. Okay. There we are. Oh, thank you. Well, I do try to be nice. I just think if you can't, if nothing else, you can be kind in this world. So as I say, that none of these are going to be identical, and that's fine. If at some stage we want some more flower making tutorials, because you can use the dies with foam, the foam Iran seems to have gone a little bit out of vogue at the moment, but yeah, that's what happens in crafting. I'm sure it will come back around. Then I can do some more, because I'm quite capable of making uber realistic flowers if I really want to. So let's just pop that into there. And as I say, you'll not get two the same, no matter what you do. It's just not going to happen. There we are. And then I'm going to do something different with this big flower, just to show you something different. Now, the hole in the centre of here is tiny. And I'm just going to give it a little gentle cut, because I want to cram into here a lot of stamens. 3, 4. And Stamperia have bought out packs of white stamens, and you can dunk them in glue and then into glitter and change them up. You could dunk them into alcohol inks, because the alcohol or the media inks will stick to the heads of the stamens quite nicely. Foameran is the correct name. It's quite time consuming, and it's quite hard on the fingers. And you're thinking, how many am I going to put into that? Well, we're just going to have a nice bunch. And this is exactly why I made that hole bigger. There we are. So I think I had the next 2 weeks lives planned. And then the lovely Sylvie from Pentart and I've had a discussion today, and we're going to be doing some more papercraft based lives, but using Pentart products over the next few weeks. Let me just grab, because my hand's not going to like this. There we are. So if your hand's struggling, just grab yourself a pair of pliers. There we are. And I'm going to tuck that down and hopefully show that even if you put masses and masses and masses of stamens in, you can still have a really nice effect. You like that plan? Yeah, I think so. So you can expect me to use a lot of the Stamperia, more of the Stamperia papers, but and some of the mediums that are perhaps more associated with papercraft. And I won't say there won't be molds, but I think that we might have a lot less molds. So here we are. So from pre-colored fabric that I've made for myself, plus stamping with the fabric, I've got myself some pretty florals for my card, and I'm going to pop that off to the side. So let me just pop this out the way, and let's just upend, blink, this little lot out of the way. There we are, because we've got lots of bits here. And, you know, there's no question, this is not going to be your average everyday card. It's going to be a card that you make with love. Look how beautiful that is. It's a little butterfly cut from the vellum, and that is in the die set that has the envelope in it. Okay. So, but that envelope die set absolutely requires you to have a bigger platform. Thank you. So we're not making a small card. Why would I make a small card? And I'm not going to ink tonight because life's too short and I don't want to be here till tea time. So this is an 8-inch square, so 20.3 centimeters square card blank, and it's 10th fold. You could do it that way. I'm just going to do it 10th fold. Okay. And I'm using the Stamperia Timeless collection. And you look at this paper and it's sort of badged almost as wedding. And I get that. But it's actually, there are so many. This is a paper where actually there are so many more background papers, images that you can, that are utterly timeless. Okay, so I am using the Pentacolor Express glue. I could be using the papercraft glue quite happily. I could be using the hobby glue. Lots of different options. I just happen to have this one open and it will work quite nicely. Let's turn that up the right way because there is a text on that. And we're not even going to scruffle. We're going to keep this reasonably straightforward. I'll just pop that in so it's reasonably even on there. You can be a perfectionist if you want. So I've just cut this 0.5 centimetre smaller than the card base, okay, which is 8 inches. Now, can I remember what I did, how I cut this? But I want to build up some layers, okay. It's not going to be a clean card by the time we're finished. So I've got another piece of white cardstock. I'm using 300 GSM. It's probably over the top. You could just as easily use 220, I think. So this has been cut to 18 centimeters, and the layer I am putting on top is cut at 17.5 centimeters. Okay, so let's just pop that onto there. And it's surprising just how much more detail you can get just by adding some mats and some layers for your pieces. Does not have to be complicated. There we are. So that can go onto there, and we'll even that up. And the joy of wet glue, of course, over tape is that it gives you that wriggle glue. It's a water-based glue. All of Pentart's glues are water-based. Okay. And I want this to have a little bit of dimension, and so I have got some foam tape here generic foam tape. So let's just add, and I don't like a soggy bottom, okay, but I don't have foam sheets. And anyway, I'd use about 5 of them for this card by the time we're finished, and that becomes ridiculously expensive. And much as you don't have to be ridiculously expensive. You could just as easily use a piece of cardboard cut to about 17 centimeters and glue that on the back if you wanted. That would work just as well. But this is going to add some depth, but leave me space if I want to come back and tuck things underneath the layers. Okay, so let's just make sure that that's down there, that's down there. And can I see what I have now done with my pokey tool? Yes, I can. So let's just hoik the, you can never get tape liner off when you want to do it in a hurry, can you? It's just not going to happen. There we are. So I'm hoping to say that you can make something really pretty. Yes, it's going to be special. Yes, it might need to go in a box or even a little bag. But if you've got a very special occasion, a big birthday, an anniversary, a newborn baby, anything like that, then actually it's quite nice to have something that will work. So let's just pop this. I think that is the correct way up, and then let's centralize that reasonably well in there. Now, if I wasn't on a live, I'd stick my little head over that, but I am on a live. So my next piece of card is 16 centimeters, and this will be 15.5 centimeters. There's a plan here, isn't there, and a theme. Look at the back of that piece of paper. It's beautiful. So I am using a mixture of 12 by 12, 8 by 8, single-sided and double-sided. You could make this card quite easily just from the 8-inch paper had, but in either one of them will work. Okay. And this is actually just the corner piece from one of the 12 by 12 papers. So you can see that actually it cuts down to give you a beautiful piece. And let's rinse and repeat the tape. There we are. You can see how well that glue grabs so very quickly. There we are. I'm going to have sticky hands in a minute. And I can't see. Oh, that's what I've done with it. There we are. Because I was doing something that I don't very often do, that I have this fully prepped, fully laid out, ready to go. As I say, I wanted to show that you can primarily the new dies and how you can pop things together quite nicely. There we are. I do have one more novel trick up my boot. But there we are. So am I being over the top with this? Possibly. But will it mean that my card doesn't sag? Yeah. And I don't want a saggy card. Because it'll sit on the side for ages. It will eventually get gifted. We'll just need to wait for the occasion. And of course, if you're making your own cards, what you can do is make them, leave them minus the sentiment, and then when the occasion arises and you think, that card will work perfectly, you can then add an appropriate sentiment, either from the paper pack collection itself, or stamp and cut your own sentiment, because that will work quite nicely too. Let's get this up the right way. Australian cards not wanted. There we are. So there we are. So already we've got lots of interest from the dimension and the pretty papers. And if you know, you could cut out the middle of your papers if you don't want to be so extravagant with them. Oh yeah, let's just get rid of some of this lot, because I've got lots and lots and lots and lots of bits here. That's the piece I want. Okay. So this snippet came from when I cut this piece off, and I wanted it, if I just pop it straight onto there, it sort of blurs into the background. So I have popped it onto a piece of white card. Again, a piece left from cutting the other pieces. Okay, and that definitely has a right and a wrong way. So that can go onto there, onto there. And that can go onto there. About 2/3 of the way down, because that's going to work for my eyes. Okay, approximately. There we are. Hopefully that's straight. There we are. Okay. So this piece comes from the one of the set with lots of leaves. So it's another die set. And I'm just going to pop it there and there for the moment. Okay. Cool. So this is the envelope die that comes in its own stamp set with some leaves, and also the piece that cuts this. Now, again, for full transparency, these little X's all stay in the die, and when you pull this piece out, and then you have to pick them out of the die separately. So is that frustrating? Yes. Is it absolutely worth it? I think so. Okay. So we're going to turn this over. Okay. And we're going to reinforce those holes. The score lines are in the die itself. Okay. So we're just going to give that a little squash. That a little squash. And I'm going to leave it open on the project. And while I'm thinking about it, ladies, just bear with. We're going to get a candle. We have a plan. We have a candle. And this is the Stamperia wax seal. We'll just light that little tea light. And pop that over the top for reasons that will become clear in the fullness of time. There we are. Okay. So I don't want to have this sealed long term. I have a plan. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of that glue there and close that down. And just give that a little burnish and time for that glue to grab. Okay. Oops. Go over that. So I'm going to pop this here. And that piece there. So let's just add some glue. And I'm not putting it at the centre, upright at these edges. I'm going in a little bit because it allows me to add a little bit of depth, and also it's going to allow me to tuck things underneath it. Okay. So this is our card, and I'm going to pop that like that. So it's not quite in and not quite out. So that then needs just a little bit of glue there, maybe a little bit of glue underneath there. Okay, so that's going to sit in there like that. as if it's coming out of the envelope. And then we're going to start doing some layering and adding. So I've got a little bit of gauze, medical gauze here, okay? And I'm going to pop a little bit there. And I'm going to shuffle some of that just underneath there. So the bits poking out. Okay. So what we're going to do, well, we're going to give these, chop off most of those stamens, okay? There you are, chopped it off. They're going nowhere. And that's because I've used hot glue to glue it in place. And then I've got some that are darker, made in the same way. Okay. And we're just going to make some floral clusters. Because why not? Why not indeed? Okay. So let's just add a little floral there. And then we'll come back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some of these into place now, okay? So, yeah. So I've just got the those florals. I could add some more if I wanted to, but I'm not too sure that I want to. Okay. So that's approximately where we're going with this. But I've got out of here, I've got lots of additional elements that I'm wanting to put in. So if I can tuck these into place. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a shape. All I've done is scrunch it down. Okay. What have I done with my hot glue gun? Because I sort of now know where I'm going. Okay. The green in this is absolutely stunning. Okay. So that is going to go into there. And I'm not gluing those into place quite yet because it's just going to allow me to tuck things under. Once they're glued down, it will become much harder to do that. Okay. That hasn't gone out good. Okay, so that can go into there. There we are. So I've got a few more pieces here. And I'm going to tuck that one actually underneath. And that's the advantage of having used the tape. Pop that there. Okay. So let's just add a few more pieces into here. Let me see. See, I knew exactly where I was going with that. There we are. That piece is going in there. So I'm tucking this underneath the gauze for the moment. Okay. And I'm going to pop that piece there. So let me just pop that underneath there. Okay. Right, so I've got quite a lot of this where I want it now. So I'm now going to stick my little handmade flowers into place. And I like the look of them bunched up. I could have, but I haven't, hand dyed some some white ribbon to work with this as well. That would work quite nicely. So let's just pop that one into there. So by, as I say, by using your own paints and colours, you really, have lots of options. Yeah. I don't think I want another big flower, but that's fine because I've got some of these. I'm going to tuck that underneath because that's the way my brain wants that to go. Okay. And I'm just going to split that piece and allow it to shred into 2 different directions. Okay. And do I want that there? Maybe I don't want that there. I had it all in place when I did it, but that's okay. So we're just going to take that and chop it in half, okay? And I'm going to tuck that under there. And I'm going to tuck that half into there. So don't be afraid to chop up your pieces and just play. Yeah. So I've now got some extra leaves, and I've got some beautiful vellum pieces. That. And you can't use wet glue with your vellum, ladies, because it will definitely make a pickle for you, because essentially things become stickier. Yeah. I'm going to pop that into that. There are lots of different floral elements, leaf elements in this collection. So we're just going to carry on. This particular one comes in 2 sizes. There we are. Just add a little bit underneath there, tuck it into there. There we are. Now I could go hunting for some more bits and pieces, more floral elements, but we'll behave and not go hunting too muchly. There we are. But you can see how you could just carry on coming in here and adding more and more elements as you go. Okay, I do have some florals, some leaves to pop in. So we're going to pop that, tuck that under there. That's better. Yeah. I'm going to pop that underneath there. And this is just about how it looks to my eye. I'm clustering and building areas and depths and dimensions. Okay, there we are. So I have a little vellum butterfly. I'm going to tuck that in there. I'm going to tuck that one onto there. Another little floral. Which I'm going to pop into there. And we have another leaf. And we're going to tuck that into there. So remember, these have all come out of that paper collection. Right, for the eagle eyes, you can see I've got a sentiment over there. But there is a rationale as to why I lit my wax melt set. So let me just pop this over here. Pop that over there. Okay. So the starter set of the wax melt from Stamperia comes with this box, 7 dies, 7 of these, the head, and lots of wax melts, and the little spoon. And so that can go onto there. And that can go down there, out of the hardware. Thank you. So I've chosen from the dies that come with the collection, the one with the ring. But I could just as easily have the envelope. In fact, I might swap it because I use this on a different one. Let's go for that bow. So we've got an envelope that will work for lots of different things. A hot air balloon. This one says I love you. That one says Mr. and Mrs. So these literally come off and screw into place. And that can go over there. I have a cold ceramic tile. You can do it on your glass mat. So ladies, there are lots of different coordinating wax melts in a pretty heart shape for this collection, because why wouldn't you have ones that are pretty heart shaped? Which colour would you like? Do we want to stick with the greens and the blues? There's no pink on the card. Do we want the white? Well, if someone would just make a little comment. Dark, mid blue, pale green, pink, white, or the dark blue. Any preferences? Or I will choose. How much of a delay have we got on green? Thank you, Connie, for making the decision for me. That makes life easy. So we are going to end up having to wait. So this is now nice and warm. Oh, she says. 1, 2, 3 will be enough. Okay, possibly a bit much, but that's also fine. Sarah's pink. Okay, second from the left. I think that was the green. There we are. So we've got a decision, and now we just have to be patient. They can go down on the floor. But my machine is now, my little holder is nice and warm, so you can see that the flame is completely contained. I wouldn't have your hair down. I wouldn't have pets running around. Obviously, don't think that would be very sensible. But it's reasonably safe, and you don't. The bare flame is absolutely covered when it's there, so it's completely safe for what you're doing. There we are. So we just now need these to melt. And you can give them a little bit of a helping hand by giving them a little push. But it won't take a ridiculous amount of time. I don't think that, apart from a few reels from Lou Journal, I don't think that they're really being used very much. So I think it's quite nice. Do I think that they're expensive? Yeah, I do. But I do think that they work perfectly with the collections. And if you're a matchy samey person, then they're a must, aren't they? Because it's somehow easier to work with what's in the collection, and maybe just buy selectively. I think that particular pack with its envelope, balloon, the bow, could be used for lots and lots of different questions. And I love you doesn't have to be wedding, does it? It could be I love you, thank you for having my baby. Lots of different reasons why you might want to, I love you, just because you're thinking about them, because someone might need a little bit of love. There we are. Just so I have to be fair and say I think that these little heart ones are a little bit bigger than the octagon ones in the starter set, but the colors work. So let's just let that dry. We just need to let that melt and be patient. And of course, we all know patience is not my middle name. There we are. We are getting there. obviously don't stick your finger in it to find out whether it's melted, because you might just go, ouch. And I'm not going to do this directly onto my work, because you can do, but if I don't do it directly onto the work, I can then make sure I've got everything up the right way. This is definitely a lateralized stamp, and if you want to know when it's upright, then I suggest you get a pen and mark the top of it, like that, so that you know what is top and what is bottom when you're popping it on. Otherwise you might end up with something a bit wonky, and wonky is not necessarily good. So let's just pour most of that into there, drop that into place, and then we just have to be patient. So that whilst that's patient, I'm just going to take what's left of this. It's nice and fluid. Who needs gems? That needs to heat up a little bit more. You don't need gems, do you? Because you can make your own little blobs quite happily. Yeah. Come on, let it drip. And you can have them in lots and lots of different sizes. Yeah, so I'm going to pop that over there. I don't need that now, so I'm just going to pop that over there and let that cool down. Don't touch it, it is hot. What's left can be scraped back out of there and popped back into the box it's come from, or you could just add some more colours to it. So when it's dry and gone hard, it lifts off really, really easily. And because we've got cool tones, I've actually just picked up a little bit of wax, and I'm just going to go over the edge and the rim of here. With a little bit of wax. Okay. So we're going to tuck that into there. So I'm using that almost instead of a mold. Yeah. When you think of how much molds are, if you don't use them very often, these then become quite cost effective, I think. So we're just adding that little piece there. Now these little bits, I might not add them, but I can then add, just pop these into here. Yeah. So that's just a little bit of glue. Pop the blob down. Are they all identical? Absolutely not. Does it matter? Absolutely not. But what it does do is it's adding 3 areas of that green into the piece, and those will set with the express glue when other glues might not work so well. Yeah. Just when it's still a liquid, just wipe it out. It wipes out really easily. It's a little bit more difficult once it's set, but just be careful you don't burn your fingers when you do that. And then I have a little sentiment cut from the papers that says, best wishes. That I'm going to pop, actually, as if it's coming out of that card, just there. So, ladies, we've made our own flowers to coordinate with the paper collection using fabric, dyes, paints, and stamps. We've die cut lots of leaf elements out of the collection. We've die cut the little photo frame that she's just poking out of the sides. We die cut the envelope and its insert. And we have one very special card. Yes, it is dimensional. Yes, it is going to have to go in a box. But hopefully, whoever receives it will think it's absolutely well worth the effort. And I think it shows that you can bring your mediums into your card making quite satisfactorily and really enjoy yourself. I've got strings of hot glue everywhere. That's the bane, isn't it, of hot glue? So thank you, Ari. Welcome. So you might well see me doing some art journaling. You might well see me doing a bit more card making. I just need to work out how I can add lots of the pent-up paints and paste into the more papercraft based lives rather than the mixed media ones, but I'm sure I can get my head around that and we will get there. Depending on how my health is, I may or may not go live on Friday. I need to start some medicines and I'm not sure when I'm getting them, that's why. And going wobbly on medicines on the middle of a life is not a good thing. So if and the same might well apply for Sunday. So I will definitely see you online for Penta next Tuesday, but I may well end up online on Friday and also Sunday. So but I'll post that on my own social media pages. So bye bye for now. Take care of yourselves and be kind.